Maybe he only ran once, whatever, but he's a councilman or something.
He ran for some type of other different local government.
Yeah.
And so now the contract that's in, there won't be their contract won't come up before the next reelection.
It'll be after.
Right. Well,
yeah.
And I was surprised that they didn't fight to the mat on that.
I am too.
She was never gonna.
Never gonna get.
Made no difference to her. Would have been.
Same.
Good evening and welcome to the Week in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. After 2 acrimonious weeks, the Chicago teachers' strike finally comes to an end.
We have reached an agreement with CTU President Jesse Sharkey. Classes will resume tomorrow. We invited him to come out so we could do a joint announcement. He declined.
Frankly, our members are still out there on the picket line today, and they don't need to see me smiling with the mayor.
The strike ended with one last bargain, a deal to make up 5 of the 11 missed days of school.
All over the world, they're talking about Chicago. Afghanistan is a safe place by comparison.
The mayor fired back, saying the president was perpetrating a crime wave from inside the White House. Meanwhile, in Springfield, State Rep Louis Arroyo resigns after a federal bribery charge roils the state capitol. And in sports.
Last 3 years, my name's been thrown around a lot in the managerial ring, and took those 3 years to prepare for this moment.
Former catcher David Ross, part of the Cubs' 2016 World Series winning team, officially named as the club's new manager.
Joining us are Marianne Ahern of NBC5 Chicago, Nader Issa of the Chicago Sun-Times, Kimberly Agoin of WVON, and Maggie Hendricks of The Athletic and 670 The Score. Let's dig right into it. Nader, there is a tentative agreement here voted on by the Teachers Union House of Delegates. Any chance that the full union would not agree to this?
Let's hope not, because then we're going to be right back where we started. There's a chance. Obviously, nothing's a guarantee until it's done. There were quite a few people. The House of Delegates vote was unusually tight. It was about 60% of people in the House of Delegates who voted for the deal. So it could come down to a little bit of debate, but honestly, it doesn't seem like they're going to turn it down at this point.
Marianne Ahern, are there any winners or losers in this battle in the public perception right now?
There's a lot of winners and losers. When any kind of strike, that's how it's going to come down to at the end when you analyze it. And I think overall, the teachers were the big winners. They got a contract that they have not seen in a long, long time. Taxpayers, guess what? You're going to pay for it. That's how it goes.
$1.5 billion, is that the number they're throwing around right now?
That's what everyone is talking about at this point. And so where is all that going to come from? The holy grail of property tax hike? No one wants to say those words yet. But yes, at the same time when we say the teachers won, the students won. When you have not had a nurse in every school or a social worker in every school, and these days what's going on in the world, yes, that's needed. At the same time, you have to live within your means. So there's going to be that difficult balance of people saying, did the mayor negotiate the best deal that she could have done?
Kim Agoin, did she negotiate the best deal that she could have?
Well, she did the best that she could, I guess. I don't know, but as far as the best deal for what CPS was looking for, CPS was on the slow roll to equity. They pulling out like one nurse at one school at one time. They weren't expecting CTU to become civil rights fighters and go well beyond whatever they were doing just for their own salaries, but they really picked up this civil rights issue of especially black students not having half of the things that other students have in CPS. She wasn't ready for that. She threw everything out there as far as the 16% increase. I mean, that was like right off the table, and I guess she thought, okay, once I give them that, they'll back down, and that is not.
So
what happened.
she came with her initial offer. You think she went too far with her initial offer?
I think it was probably too far, too fast, and also they kept her honest about being this progressive mayor, this mayor who's going to be about equity for the entire Chicago public school system. It was something I don't think she was expecting.
Maggie Hendricks, do you think this was all worth it? 11 days of missed school?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the teachers put themselves on the line to honestly make the city a better place, because making sure that students have the support they need, the health support, the mental health, everything that they need, they didn't have to do that. They could have just asked for money, but because they pushed for more, I think our students, and honestly our future, is in a much better place.
Nader Issa, what are the mechanisms to enforce these new requirements that class sizes not go above 40 students and that there's a school nurse and a social worker and a librarian in every school?
The funny thing about class size is they're getting $35 million to do it, and some people in the teachers union still aren't happy with it. So they basically have this new council where it's going to be 6 people from the city and 6 people from the union, and they're going to look at a case-by-case basis. But there are some classes, like in 6th grade, it can have 34 students, and it still won't get any help. Right. So that's why some teachers are upset. They thought it didn't go too far, but $35 million is a lot of money, and it's a lot more than zero, which is what they've had.
Mary Ann Ahern, is there bad blood between the union now and the mayor? Since they wanted their 11 days of pay restored, she agreed to 5 days.
From the very beginning, when the mayor said, I'm not going to pay them. Now, perhaps that was to get tough, I'm going to show them. I would think, in standard negotiations, there usually are days given back and are paid for. Although we haven't, we had a strike 7 years ago, but before that it had been 25 years. So folks probably need to go back and look at all those years before. Anyway, Jesse Sharkey, the CTU president, told me yesterday they'd accept 7 or 8. They didn't get that, they got 5. But it's the interesting part of that negotiation that was done at the last minute after the tentative agreement was approved in her office when she said, Stacey Davis Gates, no, you're not allowed in.
And why was that?
Well, I think Stacey Davis Gates is pretty strong, and she wanted to deal with one person at a time. And in speaking with her this afternoon, she said it was the CTU president and his attorney, it was my attorney, it was the 4 of us. That was it. But I wonder if they would have been, if it would have taken even longer to get to that deal if Stacey had been in the room.
Kim McGowan, is this just the beginning of a protracted battle now between the teachers union and Mayor Lightfoot, who ideologically is not very far from their ideology?
Well, ideologically, but in practice, so far, she said there was no money for any of this, and we found out there was quite a bit of money for some of these things that were necessary. The CTU, and here's the thing, the people were on the side of CTU, okay? They stuck with CTU. The parents want the best for their children, and I think that the momentum that parents gave, Stacey Davis Gates was really the heart and soul of this movement, and I think that's why she didn't want her in that room. Stacey Davis Gates had been a part of the discussions from the beginning. The mayor only came in at the very last second, so I think that was a little bit disrespectful. But
I would just beg to differ slightly. Okay. I think they were with the teachers at the beginning. As it dragged on, if they had not walked into that classroom by today, I don't know where the support had been. I think by then folks were like, please,
in the
get
beginning,
back to school.
They were with teachers in the beginning, the public perception here, and with the mayor. It wasn't a zero-sum game, and it seemed like
the same villain.
Both sides were losing support as this dragged on. Nader Issa, is there dissension in the union right now, given what you talked about, that it was a very close vote? And there was a tweet that one member said, we got the floorboards, we should have gone in for the safe.
Right, and Mary Ann was out there. Everything we were hearing outside that House of Delegates meeting was, it's kind of hot in there, and it's kind of contentious, and people are yelling, and there's just a lot of debate, and the union loves to talk about how democratic they are and that they go through and take their time and talk through things. But it just seemed like people were not afraid to share their displeasure with basically Jesse Sharkey saying, we've got all we can, let's give up and let's go back to school.
But let's also put this in another frame of, look at it through another lens. There are people around the country who are suing their cities because of the poor and dismal education that the cities are providing as far as public education. CPS got off kind of easy on this because people are not really looking. We talked about libraries, we talked about social workers, nurses, but the disparity where a school in Saguenay has absolutely everything and a school in Chatham has nothing. These are major issues that are probably coming more to light at this point. And I think that in that way, when people find out more, we don't know what they're going to feel.
Maggie
about.
Hendricks, is there any lasting damage here to CPS in general and students who, you know, I think cross-country runners can't compete in
Actually, news. They are now.
they are
able.
going to compete.
It happened just
Sounds
moments before
maybe
we
10 minutes.
started.
Oh.
Okay.
They
This
are,
is why we do this show live.
a judge, a Cook County judge, has ruled that they are allowed to compete this weekend because it wasn't their fault. They were
Right.
caught in the middle, and say they now will be a part of that meet.
What about other athletic programs like Simeon has a really good football team? Are they damaged from this?
I believe they are. I believe that because they had to play, they had to be able to practice by Tuesday night to be able.
No, they're playing
they're
tomorrow.
playing.
Oh, they're playing.
They're
Okay.
playing tomorrow.
They
I
were
missed
relaxed
that
the
one.
rules for them too.
But I mean, but missing a week of practice, I mean, does that hurt them, I guess, on the field?
You know, I think maybe 10 years ago it would have, but honestly, these days kids work so much harder when they're in off seasons that they know how to stay in shape. They know how to just go to a park district field and get together with their teammates and work out.
Certainly, we wish all the student athletes the best. Marianne, going into budget season now, is Mayor Lightfoot weakened in City Council given how tough this battle was?
Well, I think that aldermen are going to test her on this because, first of all, she's relying on Springfield for a lot of the balancing of the budget, and that is not a done deal just yet. We saw what happened in their session. They didn't even get to any of the Chicago issues. So there's been a couple of vocal aldermen. We know,
We know who they are.
We know who they are, and will more of them start to say, "Wait a second"? They've already asked her, "What's Plan B? If you don't get what Springfield you're looking for, then what's the plan?"
Well, the funny thing is, the public perception might be that the mayor is weakened, but everything I'm hearing out of the mayor's office is they feel like the past 2 days have been great for her. And they feel like she was able to come out and show, as they're saying, her prosecutor side. And she was able to come out and just show a little bit of that fight that she was sort of shying away from
And
at the beginning
at the
of
same
strike.
time, she, in her campaign, supported a lot of the things that they settled on in the end. All right, we have to move to some Springfield news. Indicted state lawmaker Louis Arroyo resigns as fallout from his federal bribery charge makes lawmakers squirm during this first week of veto session. ComEd, caught up in the FBI's investigation, is now in the crosshairs of an SEC investigation as well. And Mayor Lightfoot says her Springfield priorities are on track, as we just talked about, even with some lawmakers pushing back against her ass. All right, Marianne, my question here with Louis Arroyo, he's resigning. Speaker Madigan wanted him to resign. The House wanted him to resign. In the Senate, you've got two senators also under federal corruption clouds, and they don't have to resign. What's the difference here?
I'm so baffled by this. Speaker Madigan moved so quickly. I just made me say, well, what does Louis Arroyo know about Speaker Madigan that he needs to get him out of there?
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah,
If he's
true.
gone, the Arroyo could spill.
Exactly. And now they're so focused on ethics. Meanwhile, the city needs gambling. They need the real estate transfer tax. You know, are they going to be able to get to that if they're going to now focus on whether or not they're going to have ethics legislation? We saw what happened with the Me Too legislation. Wasn't that interesting? They're monitoring each other. Who is going to be the independent watch? Whatever. It's crazy.
Too confusing to keep up with. Kim McGowan, is Mayor Lightfoot's agenda down there in peril? They have 1 week left to do something in the veto session.
I don't think anything happens during this part of the veto session. I think it's when they come back. And I don't know that it's in peril. It looks like she set up a good relationship with the legislators. She was respectful, but she needs to stay respectful. She needs to make sure she toes that line because state legislators don't like to feel like they're backed against the wall. You have to do this for us.
Although it does look like there is movement on changing the structure of a Chicago casino, which lawmakers before had said that would be a non-starter.
There's so many balls in her court. She had the teachers' strike facing her. What we're also hearing is she could have been communicating better with the governor, with the speaker. She said today, I've been talking to them, my people, our contacts, but I'm also hearing the opposite. So I just don't know how cozy of a relationship yet she has with the governor for him to make sure all of this happens for her.
Back to the Arroyo situation, it's been reported that the person wearing the wire, getting the bribes, the supposed bribes from Arroyo was Senator Terry Link, a guy that's pushed the casino bill for years and years and years. Are you certain that that's true, that that's correct?
He has absolutely denied it. He has told WBEZ that he is not, and yet others have said he is. However, today, now lawmakers are asking him to step down from the committee chairmanships that he has. They're concerned. Who wants to talk to him now, wondering whether or not, are you wearing one?
Right.
And then again, why should you worry if you're not doing anything wrong?
Sounds familiar. It's like city council.
It is
Alderman
the
Carrie
ethics
Austin.
committee, too, that he's on.
Nader, if Mayor Lightfoot doesn't get the real estate transfer tax bill that she needs to help plug the budget, then what happens?
They're going to have to keep borrowing, and they're going to be in some deep trouble. I mean, this year is fixed, but then what happens in the year after and the year after? And there are already aldermen pushing back and saying, we don't think your solutions are quite where they need to be, and you're basically making assumptions that this is going to work and this is going to work, and she could be in
So, yeah, and we're in the budget hearing season now, and the committees are having hearings for each part of the budget. We'll see what happens. Kim McGowan, why is ComEd, for lack of a better term, shaking down Springfield again and saying, we're going to close these plants unless you bail us out, when they're under a corruption investigation?
I don't know how long that's going to last. I know the corruption investigation will last, but I don't know how long that's going to be, that they're going to push that issue, because this is going a long ways. I mean, they are investigating everyone who's ever done anything with ComEd in Springfield and all of the legislators. So I don't know if they have a foot to stand on to say that they're going to close different plants.
As Rich Miller said, you got to hand it to them for having the kind of nerve to come and say,
lot of gumption.
hey, we're going to ask you for more rate hikes.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some other news. President Trump rips Chicago again on his visit to town, prompting the mayor and police superintendent to fire back. Boeing CEO faces sharp questioning in the House and Senate over the company's troubled 737 MAX jet, and the Obamas reveal the latest version of their design for their planned presidential center in Jackson Park. Maggie Hendricks, as a Chicagoan, are you offended that the president came to town and basically ripped the city and the superintendent to shreds?
I don't really put much stock in anybody who doesn't really come to Chicago, doesn't really spend time here, doesn't literally helicopter in and then take a short drive to McCormick Place and then skedaddle out of town without actually even getting a piece of pizza. I'm sorry, you don't know anything about Chicago, so your opinion doesn't matter.
Mary Ann, you were with the press pool for the president's visit. You followed him from the airport to McCormick Place. What was that experience like?
Well, we kind of made it sound more interesting perhaps sometimes than it really was. I was in the motorcade. Hey, we got to go through the lights. I didn't get to shout a question. I was told I might get to, so I had them all ready. I thought about them. I was like, okay, which one should I ask if I did get this chance? That never happened. But, it's interesting no matter who is the president to see the process. At the same time, you notice the bubble that they are in. The fire truck in the behind, all the security. We were in the Trump Tower while he was at his fundraiser. You saw the protesters outside. You really can't hear them. You can see them. It is quite a bubble that no matter who is, again, the president. I wish that we
and apparently he didn't get a slice of pizza, as Maggie suggested.
I wish we would have been able to talk to him a little more.
Kim McGowan, this war of words with Superintendent Eddie Johnson, is there some political benefit here, especially with Eddie Johnson going through a little bit of a controversy with what happened that night he was found slumped over in his car? Is there some benefit to him being sort of the anti-Trump here?
I think that it's the same playbook from when he was the superintendent under the former mayor, Rahm Emanuel. When things are not going great for you, talk about Trump. Now, Trump lends himself to it. Don't get me wrong, he does. But it's like a red herring. Whatever Trump says doesn't make our crime get any better. It doesn't make our crime get any worse. And I have to give it to Trump, and I never give it to Trump, but I have to give it to Trump. He showed great restraint in not discussing the fact that our superintendent was found slumped over in his car after having drank something that night.
I was surprised by that, too, and perhaps he didn't know anything. He also didn't say anything about the teacher's strike, which was interesting. Nader Issa, what about Mayor Lightfoot getting involved here, saying the only crime that's happening is with you and the White House? Does this give her a political boost?
Well, it's just free cake for her. It's right there for the taking. It's just like Rahm Emanuel. Anytime there's a chance to go after Trump, anyone in her base, anyone that she's looking to have support her, they're not going to be upset with her going after Trump. It's just really easy money for her to go and respond to anything that he says.
Marianne, the Chicago company, Boeing, its CEO, Dennis Muhlenberg, getting grilled in front of Congress because of the problems with the 737 MAX, 2 of which crashed, killed a lot of people. How much trouble is Boeing in, do you think?
Not my bailiwick, but I would think, why would they not have said this sooner? And does it not give you pause to say, well, how can I trust them in the future?
As much as, and they're saying they knew that there was problems with this plane. Kim, what do you think the fallout's going to be?
The fallout is they're going to lose a lot of money, and there are going to be a lot of lawsuits, and I don't know if anyone's ever going to believe that that plane is ready to go. They were supposed to put more of those planes out. People have canceled their orders, rightfully so far, because we don't know what exactly is going on with the software or the way the plane is made. So in that way, they have lost a lot of credibility.
Maggie, if your flight, you found out it was a 737 MAX jet, would it change your travel plans?
It depends on where I'm going. How far are we going? If I'm just going to land in a cornfield in Indiana, I'll be all right.
if that's where you want your destination to be, I guess. All right, let's move on to sports. The Cubs make the rumors true and name former catcher David Ross as the team's new manager. The Bears prepare to take on the Eagles, a team that knocked them out of the playoffs last season. The struggling Bulls face the Pistons, and the similarly struggling Blackhawks prepare for L.A. A bill letting college athletes make money on their name and likeness clears the Illinois House. And in some national sports news, the Nationals win their first ever World Series. But let's go back local. Maggie Hendricks, I'm struck by Joe Madden, just introduced as the Angels manager, saying, well, it was a mutual decision to part from the Cubs. I wasn't interested in going back either. Does that tell you that he had some problems with Theo Epstein?
Yeah, and that's been whispered for a while now. That's been whispered really since last season, since it's clear that Theo was having to send players out of town to keep Joe from playing them. When Carl Edwards going to Iowa, or he would bring in a player just to be a pinch hitter, and then all of a sudden he'd be starting. So I think we all kind of knew that this relationship was not in great spot.
Are you worried though that David Ross is going to be micromanaged by Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer just kind of want to pull the strings here?
Theo was emphatic on Monday that he said, no, he's not a puppet. This is not how it's going to be. But we've heard that before, literally heard that before from the president. So, I don't really know what we're going to get out of David Ross, but I do think that he's going to work a lot more closely with the front office than Joe Madden has.
And as a first-time manager, he wasn't that expensive. This Espada guy from Houston probably would have commanded more money. Is there any sense that the Ricketts wanted to save money here?
Honestly, what they're saving is $500,000 to $1 million. And
it's a rounding error for them.
Honestly, it's not. It's what they're saving is not really what it's about. I think it's more about this is the guy we groomed. This is the guy we wanted.
Do you sense either team, the Cubs or the White Sox, being active in free agency?
I'm honestly interested to see how the Cubs are going to be active more as a trade team, because I think it's possible we might see somebody like Chris Bryant go, especially depending on how his grievance turns out.
When is that going to be resolved?
That's a darn good question. They've said anywhere from 15 days to 90 days. So.
How many days ago was that?
About a week ago. We've got a while.
All right. Do you have any hope that there's going to be some miraculous turnaround and Mitch Trubisky all of a sudden is going to be the quarterback everyone hoped he would be starting this week against Philadelphia?
Not really, no.
Oh,
no.
Bummer.
He just doesn't have confidence. He doesn't. You can tell the second he makes one mistake, then he's done for the day, and that's what happened last week. And so he made one interception, and then there was a fumble after, and he just gets in his head, and that's a hard thing to fix from week to week.
But the other confounding thing was they were moving the ball, and they were terrible in the red zone, and some of those play calls just didn't make any sense. How do they fix that?
That's Matt Nagy's job. He's the play caller, and honestly, the first step to fixing any problem is admitting there's a problem, and he doesn't seem really willing to do that.
What do we want to say about the Bulls and the Blackhawks, other than watch at your own peril?
It's still fun to go to the United Center. They've got good food.
There's a
and
DJ.
Stuff. There's a DJ. They have Blue Man Group at their first home opener.
Do they still sell out every game?
The Bulls are still one of the best teams in attendance in the league.
So why would they even invest in a great team?
That's a darn good question, Paris. Why? There's really no reason for them to, but also the Bulls don't have the greatest, reputation around the league. So then that means that free agents don't necessarily want to come here.
Marianne, Governor Pritzker this week said he supports paying college athletes in Illinois. Where's that going to go?
Well, I think that's a start. When you have the governor saying that, now you got to get the lawmakers to approve it. It is a move that's already happened in California. I think we're going to see that spread across the country. And, talking about Pritzker, it seems like he has aspirations. So those are kind of ideas.
You mean national aspirations?
And now those are the kinds of ideas that catch on and people notice you. Oh, you're the guy that said that's a good idea. I agree. I'm not saying obviously for 2020, but down the road.
Kim McGowan, do you think this bill will pass?
I think it will. I've followed the discussion when it was in California. Representative Welch I believe he might be the person, or Cam Buckner, I can't remember, but they seem to be very passionate about it. Now the NCAA has decided that they're on board with it. I think that it has a really good shot. I think that a lot of people feel that student athletes are taken advantage of, and in many cases they're in really poor conditions.
And to be clear, it's a bill that would allow student athletes to be paid for the use of their likeness, say in video games or commercials, not paid for playing for their college.
Right. I mean, and honestly, it's the kind of thing that's not just going to help the football players and the men's basketball players out there. That even means that someone who is on the women's gymnastics team can go and make some money, and it also can help out Olympians in that they would be able to make money off of their likeness.
Being on the cover of a cereal box?
Exactly, and then go on and play, and they can still be a college athlete.
An amateur.
Yeah.
Maggie, a quick beat on the Washington Nationals and some of the local connections. I mean, former White Sox, Adam Eaton. Didn't the trade for Lucas Giolito give the Nationals a couple of their players?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, but Adam Eaton wasn't doing much in Chicago, so he found a new life. And also seeing Davey Martinez, who of course was Joe Madden's bench coach, see him go and win a title was kind of nice if they can't be the Cubs.
And they were 19-31 to start the year, and everyone thought Martinez wouldn't last throughout the year. And then they win the World Championship.
Yeah, I mean, and they lost Bryce Harper, one of the best players in the league, but they put it together, and it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch a team that really took the idea, you just have to get in and make it.
And you all have been fun to watch, but we're out of time. Marianne Ahern, Nader Issa, Kim McGowan, Maggie Hendricks, thank you so much. The time just flew by. We'll see you on the next edition of the Week in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. Good evening. We haven't talked about them, the women's soccer team. They're pretty good, right?
They are very good. But this afternoon, Sam Kerr, the reigning MVP, the news came out that she is going to head overseas and go play for probably Chelsea. So yeah, that's
Did they build a bit of a buzz though in Chicago?
Oh yeah. I mean, they were getting even like there was the one game where they had 21,000 people and it broke records, and it was the one right when the World Cup was over. But then they started averaging between 10 and 12,000, which is pretty good. So yeah, they've got some buzz going.
All right. Well.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices. Robert Clifford is the honoree of this year's Illinois Bar Foundation's annual fundraising event that raises money to enhance the availability of justice for those without attorneys throughout the state.